So our special guest today, he is Giuseppe Ghetto. He is an associate professor of technical and professional communication at the Eastern Carolina University, and is a president and founder of the Content Garden Inc., which is his own business. He specializes in UX and digital marketing. Visit his website at contentgarden.org. He consults with businesses, nonprofits, a variety of different industries who want to develop better content, better search engine optimization, better user experience, writing, designs, and better reach out to the target customers, clients, and donors. He's also taught with the college level for over 15 years. During that time, he has also consulted in formed research and service learning partnerships with many nonprofits and businesses, from technical writing firms to homeless shelters to startups. He's also a poet. His first book, Familiar History, is currently available from Finishing Line Press at his website as well. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over to Giuseppe Ghetto. Appreciate your time. I'm looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks, appreciate it. Welcome everyone. Share my screen here. So today we're going to be talking about digital marketing basics. The way I kind of pitch this to small business owners, entrepreneurs, solopreneurs like yourself is DIY digital marketing. And I'm going to talk about what that means. Because essentially, as a small business owner myself, I know you're going to be doing a fair amount of this stuff yourself, at least at first, right? Hopefully, once you get established, make enough money, maybe you'll scale, maybe you'll hire somebody like me to help you out, but you're going to probably start off doing a lot of your own marketing. And I have a model that I encourage that in my clients. Most of my clients are small business owners, and they are do-it-yourselfers to some degree, right? They want to be able to do things themselves. A little bit more about me. This is my contact info, FYI. This is my family system. My lovely wife, Jessica. Our cat, Jackie, she's not with us anymore, but she's still with us spiritually. As was mentioned, I am an associate professor at ECU, so I kind of have a dual role. So I have kind of an educational focus, but I also have this, business Content Garden, and basically I help grow businesses through digital marketing. That's what I do. So we do kind of the full thing, the full package. And so all the stuff I'm going to go through with you today, it's stuff that we do, but it's also stuff that I've learned over the years, and anyone can learn. So that's something that I think differentiates us from our competitors who, I'll talk about this with most digital agencies. Unsurprisingly, they just want to do it for you, right? They want to get your however much a month and just run your marketing and all that. So this is what we're going to cover today. We're going to talk about what is this thing I'm calling DIY digital marketing. I'm going to talk about how you can actually manage all your digital marketing efforts from one strategy document, believe it or not. I'm going to talk about how to use a tool called Hootsuite to build a social media content calendar, which is a really surprisingly easy thing for small business owners to do, and kind of, use the free marketing that is social media. And I'm also going to give you tips on the two most effective paid online advertising platforms that I recommend to small business owners. So what is DIY digital marketing? First of all, what's digital marketing, right? You've probably heard this term. And so I'm going to define it for us. It is using paid and unpaid digital channels for marketing and promotion. Okay, so we're going to talk about what that means, but essentially paid channels are channels that you have to pay a monthly fee, like Facebook ads, to disseminate your marketing messaging, right, online, versus unpaid is something like, a blog, right? You can write a blog. If you have a website that supports blogs, post it to your website, and you don't have to pay for that service, right? To publish that. So there's two different types of digital marketing. Why is digital marketing important? Okay. You may have heard that, oh, is digital marketing really that important? Or, you get more bang for a newspaper ad or something like that. So here's some statistics to sort of just give you a sense, give you some context. 80% of people now shop online before making a purchase. Okay. That is as high as 90%, according to some estimates. So most people, the vast majority of people, are gathering information online before they buy any good or service nowadays, for the first time, at least, right? If they know what they want, it's a little different. 70% of people won't buy from or use a poorly designed website. Okay. So you may have heard I hear this from small business owners all the time. Oh, well, I just need, a website that's like it's like a business card online. I don't really need, it's just a splash page. No, it needs to be well designed. 66% of people make decisions about a company based on their website. Okay. Websites are often the first thing that people encounter with a business. 50% of people now shop on mobile devices at least some of the time. I've had clients over the years where it's as much as 80%. So your website also needs to be mobile responsive. You don't have a lot of time also to hook a new website visitor. So when they visit your site, it needs to be immediately engaging, and it needs to tell them exactly what they're there for and really guide them. Usability, basically, which is how intuitive your site is a key factor in customer retention, meaning that even if you have a great looking site, if they go and they try to find information or make a purchase or download something and they can't do it, they're probably not going to stay your customer for long, if at all. And finally, post-purchase content and support is a key factor in future purchasing decisions. So not only having a good website and making a good first impression, but staying connected to your customers after they leave your site is also important. So we're going to talk about all those things. Okay. So you may have seen this, this is the, traditional marketing funnel, right? This is what people talk about still at ECU. I have business students that come in and this is their understanding of marketing, how it works. Someone becomes aware of a company, they become familiar with it. They go, is this, do I want, who do I want to buy from? Okay, I'll pick this person. They make one purchase and they're loyal for life, right? That is not the case anymore. Essentially, this is a loop now. Okay, this is from Kinsey & Company. They're a large scale, big data firm that tracks things like how do people shop online, right? Big questions. So once people do active evaluation, the first part of the loop here at the top, and they make a purchase, they enter this post-purchase experience is what we know now. And that determines whether they're going to come back or not. When they have a trigger again, meaning they need to re-up that product or service, or they need to buy another version of it or whatever, they can go and become loyal, they can enter the loyalty loop, or they can go back to active evaluation. If they haven't heard from you since the last time they purchased your product or service, they're 100% going to go back into active evaluation. Okay. Unless they're just really happy and, but if you haven't done anything, right, you're not exactly cultivating that relationship is the point. Okay. So that's what we're going to talk about, is how to cultivate a relationship with your customers that goes through the whole buying experience. Okay. From start to finish, so that they enter that loyalty loop and they remain loyal to you, and hopefully they're customers for life. Okay. So back to this term, DIY digital marketing. So if digital marketing is using paid and unpaid digital channels for marketing and promotion, DIY is do it yourself, of course. DIY digital marketing means leveraging digital marketing to do your own marketing. Okay. Leveraging digital channels to do your own marketing. Okay. So you're going to use these channels that people are using online to disseminate their marketing, and you're going to do it yourself. Okay. So to do this, you need a digital marketing strategy. And this is only different from a marketing strategy, which I heard you guys had, a webinar in, which is great, in that it is specific to digital, right? So an overall marketing strategy is your whole thing, right? It's traditional, digital, it's the whole ball of wax, right? I'm just going to talk about digital, which is a little different. Okay. One thing that makes digital different is that it's an active activity, right? You can't create a Facebook page for your business and then just let it sit there, right? It's not like a newspaper ad that's going to keep going for you. Okay. Even if you run a Facebook ad, for example, you got to check the analytics. You got to keep on top of it. So there's a lot more moving parts to digital than there can be to traditional. Okay. So what's a strategy? First of all, strategy is just a means of achieving a goal. Okay. So that's all a digital marketing strategy is. It's a means of achieving a goal. So unsurprisingly, the first item in your strategy should be goals. What are the goals? So I do this all the time with small businesses. I've been working with them for many, many years. And the first thing I ask is, what is your goal? And I often hear things like, well, I just want to get the word out there. So, okay, the more specific you can be, the better your strategy is going to be. Okay. Audiences. You also need to be reaching out to real life people. One advantage over digital is that you can actually target people very specifically. Okay. Channels are another thing to consider, because channels are the actual means of getting your message to people, right? Are you going to use Facebook? Are you going to use LinkedIn? Are you going to use a blog? Are you going to use email? Which channels are you going to use? Okay. And if you say all of them, which a lot of small businesses start with, I say, okay, are you going to do all that yourself? Okay. So I often encourage people to pick a few channels to start off and get going that way. You need a to-do list. Even if someone like myself is running a strategy for you, you still have to keep on top of it, because it really is your messaging and it's linked to, your business. And it's different than traditional, where you kind of hand it off to an agency and they run it for you, unless you've got a lot of funding, and then you can do that, right? Social media accounts, you also need to keep track of all your information. And that includes a login for your website. Once you have a website developed, you want to be able to, you don't want to get locked out of your own stuff, right? So let's start with the first part. What is a goal? Okay. I use this kind of play on SMART goals. Masked, measurable, achievable, simple, and task oriented. So again, this is an actual client that I had several years back. I asked them, what was their goal? Why were they talking to me? And they said, we're going to get our name out there on social media. That was their goal, right? And after working with them for a while and really trying to drill down into what they want to do, we got to this goal, which is we will post relevant content on Facebook and Twitter at least once per day in order to gain 100 new followers the next month. Okay. So that is, a lot more specific goal than the first one, obviously. Okay. And it is measurable, which is an important thing. One thing you will learn if and when, right, because you're going to do this, explore the world of digital marketing, is that everything is measurable. There's analytics, there's follower counts, there's numbers for everything. And you need to track those. You need to ask yourself, are the numbers going like this? Are they plateauing? Are they going down? Right? It's achievable. Okay. If they'd said that we want to gain 1,000 new followers next month, I would have said, you're just a little regional medical organization. I don't know if that's doable, right? You haven't really posted much. Okay. It should be simple too, right? You should be able to easily understand it, and it should be task oriented. It should invite you to do something. Okay. This is a key thing with digital marketing, DIY digital marketing especially, is it has to be something that you do. Audiences. Okay, so this is part of the strategy. These are the real life people you're trying to reach. Okay, there's a lot of different types of audiences too. Okay, one is leads. So leads are people who have not bought from you, right? They're people in your target demographic. So say you are a shoe seller. There's tons of people that use digital marketing for shoes, mostly knockoff shoes, unsurprisingly, right? You may have seen ads, if you're shoe shopping online, get this shoe. It's just like the Nike, whatever, but it's, 15% the cost, right? So leads are what drives a lot of digital marketing, because you're trying to connect with people who you think might become customers. Again, though, you can't forget about your existing customers, because dollar for dollar, they're the most valuable asset you have. It is way better for the long-term life of your business to retain existing customers than it is to just constantly be bringing in new customers and forgetting about the existing ones. Okay. Potential employees. This is another thing you can do with digital. Is if you're looking to recruit, there's a lot of avenues for doing that. And that's something to think about. Even your website. Are you hiring? Are you looking for people to do things? You might want to develop content for that. Investors. A lot of investors now are looking for a web presence, right? Does this look like a real organization, or is it just a whim? Is it a dream? Right? And influencers. Influencers are people who are more established than you that you can use to kind of boost your own clout. Okay. And we'll talk about that a little bit. The goal, though, is for you to get this specific about your audiences with your strategy. Okay. So essentially, this is an example of what's called a persona, which is an archetypal audience member. Okay. This is, I believe, Hootsuite's persona that I stole. Okay. So this is the level of information you want about your audiences in digital. Okay. You want to know some basic demographics about them, such as how old they are, whatever's relevant. It's hard to say what should go into a persona because it depends on your business, right? If age doesn't matter, don't include it, right? Maybe gender matters more. Maybe profession matters more. Hootsuite is a social media company. So the fact that this person does social media marketing is relevant to them, right? So it's whatever's relevant to you. The key thing here with an audience is understanding what are their goals and challenges and how can you help them? Because this tells you what type of content you're going to produce that's going to reach them, right? So if Rachel here's goals and challenges are to save time online, find interesting content to share, and maximize social media resources, and she wants to schedule posts to a queue and she wants to get content suggestions, right? It's pretty clear. There's 5 blog posts right there you can develop. There's a whole Twitter campaign about saving time online using our service, right? So once you understand the psychology of your audience, it tells you what content you need, right? That's the goal of having this type of audience. I can talk more about this too, but people often ask, where do I get this information? You got to talk to people, interview people, do focus groups, survey them, however you can get this data. Okay. But you do want data. I talk to small business owners all the time who've been in business for years. And I ask them, who are their customers? And they say, anyone that buys from us. And I say, no. Who are they? Describe them to me. And I'm surprised how few business owners keep any data on their customers at all. Don't know their age bracket, don't know their buying habits outside of they shopped with us. Okay. You need to save this data. You need to collect it somehow and you need to save it and use it to refine what you're doing over time. As a small business owner, myself, I can say that, my audience has refined over time, so the more data you collect and the longer you're in business, the more you should get targeted towards specific people over others. Okay. Channels. Okay. So what are the channels part of your strategy? This is a route for delivering a specific type of digital messaging to a specific audience. All right. So these are not the only channels available online, but they're some of the most common. One of the most important is search engines. Okay. People, remember, still search, meaning use a search engine when they're shopping online the majority of the time. So if you don't have a website that is specific to your business, that is indexed in search engines, you're losing a whole, realm of traffic. Okay. Social media platforms obviously are huge. Okay. That's another channel. And we're going to talk about that, pretty extensively later on. Websites are an important channel to keep, track of, because they're really your real estate. Okay. I see business owners all the time like, oh, I have a Facebook page. I don't need a website. Can't search for Facebook pages with a search engine. Okay. These social media pages are closed off in that network. Okay. So you really need both. I know it's tempting to just throw up a Facebook page or Twitter profile or LinkedIn profile or whatever and call it good, but it's really not enough. Email newsletters are another channel that are really great, especially for retention, as I've talked about. Okay, once you get a customer, be sure you have their contact info. Send them an email once a month, once a quarter, whatever. Remind them you exist. Say, how's your whatever going that we sold to you? How's it doing? Do you need help? Do you need maintenance? Whatever it is, there's some way to stay connected with those folks, and that is really essential for retention. And then finally, pay-per-click advertising. So this is where the majority of money goes into digital marketing and where it's the closest to traditional marketing, which I'll talk about. Okay. Content models. What is that? Okay. So content models I kind of skipped over before, so they're a little complicated, but essentially you need components for each type of digital messaging tailored to your audience. So it's not enough to say, okay, we're going to have a website and we're going to have 5 web pages, right? You need to understand what types of content you're going to put in there. There are a million different types of all these things. There are a million different types of blog posts out there. There are a million different types of social media posts. Okay, there are a million different types of social media messages, meaning actual direct messages you can send to people. Emails, right? Actual ads you run. There's all different types. So you really need to get specific on what your message is for each of these things. Okay. And essentially how you do that is there is a template, which I will talk about. Here's a link to one, and there's some more later on. But essentially, there's an example here, on the lower left-hand side. Depending on what type of content, what type of business you are, that's going to determine what your messaging is going to entail, right? So, for example, if you are selling shoes, your blog posts are going to be very different than someone who's in insurance, okay? If you're stuck on this gets tricky, right? Because it's like, what do I put out over these channels? That's tough. If you go to this link, there's a template that I use that kind of gets you started, gives you some of the components. But essentially, when you're coming up with these models, you have to really think about what other people are doing like you. So the best place to often look is other businesses like yours. Google and find some competitors. So don't go to, if you're doing e-commerce, don't go to Amazon, right? They're not your competitor. they're your overlord, right? Go to a small organization like yours and see what they're doing and see what you can steal, right? Don't rip off intellectual property, something like that, but see what they're doing that you think is effective, right? If you see a good newsletter, imitate it, right? There's nothing, bad about doing that. That's how I learned what digital agencies look like and was able to form one because I looked at what my favorite digital agencies were doing. Okay. But this link here, I'm not going to open it because it'll, mess with my slides, but it is free. It's a Google Doc that I maintain that has a lot of this content in there. So you can kind of use it to get started. You can basically make a copy in Google and create your own instance of it and start filling it out. Okay, so that's what I encourage you to do. That's step one. As far as the to-do list here, you've got a lot of, again, activity that you need to maintain. So unless and we can talk too. If people have questions, I can tell you what it costs to have somebody run all this for you, okay? But essentially, this template is meant to get you started on doing this yourself. Okay, so this is a list of tasks to keep your strategy running, right? So you've kind of developed your models, you know your goals and your audience. You've got some notes in there. Now you're going to start doing stuff. And I do recommend to. I've worked with people before, and they spend months and months on the strategy, and they never get started. And I'm like, get started. Work on your strategy a few hours a month. Start actually putting stuff out there. You will learn quickly what is effective and what isn't. Okay. Some of the most important tasks with digital posting, right? You got to post stuff. If you're not posting information to your channels, they're dead, right? No one's going to see them. All the analytics of these channels work with fresh content. So if you're not posting stuff on a regular basis, no one is going to see your messaging. It's not effective. Okay. Following, you also need to be connecting with other people. Okay. Not only customers, but other brands, hopefully that will follow you back and, boost your information. If you run a blog through a service like WordPress, you will actually get people commenting on your posts. You need to respond to those, right? You need to, a lot of this stuff is about connecting with people. Okay. And people expect that. If you get a comment on your website, you don't respond for a month, it doesn't look like you're active. Okay. Social listening is a term which I'll talk about in a minute, where you're actually looking at what people are talking about online in your industry. Okay. And there's lots of different ways to do that. I encourage people to use Hootsuite, which I'll talk about in a minute. But essentially, you need to kind of have your finger on the pulse of your industry and what people are saying. And again, the biggest thing is, I'm on all these lists and stuff for all this digital marketing because, right, that feeds my business. I'm able to take that and say, oh, here's this new development in, email marketing that my clients may be interested in. If I'm not connected to that stuff, I'm going to look hopelessly behind the times very quickly, right? Because they're going to be getting all this messaging from these other businesses, and they're going to have mine that is light years behind, right? So you gotta be listening. Also, though, you are listening for potential customers, right? You're listening for what people are saying. A perfect example is people on Facebook that are posting, does anyone know, a local whatever, a local mosquito abatement place, right? People are asking for recommendations online, and those recommendations are highly prized. Okay. So you want a tool that's going to tell you when people are doing that. Okay. Talking about businesses like yours, essentially. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute. And interacting. The key here is you got to be interacting with people. It's not, again, like traditional marketing where you just it's a one-way communication. It's a two-way communication. When you see something, you got to kind of seize on it. A lot of the clients I've gotten, a lot of the opportunities I've gotten over the years to the higher profile ones have been me seeing a mention of something in some channel and seizing on it, right? Going, hey, I do that. Let's talk. Okay. You got to be social on these channels. And finally, you need to analyze all this. This is why I don't encourage people to be on every social media channel and have 5 different blogs that are running and all this stuff, because if you're doing all this stuff, putting all this out, and you're not looking at the effectiveness of it, you're not gonna know what is effective and what isn't, right? You're gonna get lost. Okay. You also need social media accounts. Whenever you open an account, the goal of having the strategy is you put the information in here, right? What's your URL? I talk to people all the time who started a Twitter 5 years ago, and I ask them what their Twitter handle is, and they don't know, right? That is not a good place to be in. What is your username? What is your password? You may not know this. This has happened to a surprising amount of people. If you lose your username, your password, and your email address, you're forever locked out of some social media accounts. Twitter is notorious for this. And they won't delete your account. They'll just leave it up there forever. So you'll have your name, your business name, your logo, and it'll just be sitting there. It can get hacked. You have no control, because they, from their standpoint, right, they're not going to hand over your information to just anybody. So if you don't have an email address, like you could be anybody, you could be an imposter. And they're just not very good about support. They've gotten better, but still, I've seen people that are just locked out of a Twitter account for years. Facebook can be like that way too. Also, when you're thinking about social media accounts, though, you want to think about demographics. Okay. So this is a overgeneralization in many ways. These 4 bullet points here, meaning they're almost, they're creeping up to 3 billion people on Facebook. Okay. So there's a lot of people on Facebook. So there's more people than what I'm saying here. But to a large degree, right, if you're trying to reach older Americans, meaning 55 plus, you're probably going to Facebook, right? That's where the biggest pool of them are. If you're trying to reach people my age, like 30 to 50, you're probably going to Twitter. Okay. That's where the majority of my generation is on social media. If you look at the demographics, again, with exceptions, but that's the sort of median age. LinkedIn is a little different. It's based on professionals, right? So you have all realms of people on there from, I did meet one, young person on there who was like 7. That was very rare. It was created by the account was created by their mother, and they were trying to, they're a really smart kid and they were trying to start their own business. It was very cute. But, obviously most people on there are middle-aged, but the whole thing that unites LinkedIn is they're professionals, right? You have to have some sort of profession that you're on there to do. You're not just, hey, I'm an influencer and whatever, right? That's maybe sound really old, I know. But you're there because here's my job. I'm putting my job first. If you're a business to business, however, that's ideal, right? I use LinkedIn a lot because that's who I'm targeting. I'm trying to reach business owners. A lot of them are on LinkedIn. LinkedIn also goes, you can target a specific area and you can target the world too. So there's a lot of people on there, not only in your local region, but if you are not tied to a local region, you can reach beyond that. Okay. And Instagram, and now things like TikTok, which people are starting to advertise on. Don't ask me about TikTok. I watch TikTok videos, but I do not know anything about advertising on TikTok. But I do have a millennial member of my organization who does Instagram for us. So, I do know something about Instagram, and Instagram is a pretty solid place if you're trying to reach younger folks. If you want to do some kind of viral thing on TikTok, be my guest. I can't really help you with that. That platform is so new. This is, to me, and where a lot of people, this is where it ends, unless you're a very sort of forward-thinking agency. These are the channels you're focused on with social media. In other words, people are starting to advertise over TikTok and they're doing that, but I don't know a lot about that. So please don't ask. Website accounts. Okay. Again, once you build this website, which you're going to build, right? You need all your information. You need updated URLs, right? How do you log into your site? I talk to small business owners all the time. I say, oh, you have a WordPress site. Great. What's your login URL? And they say, I don't know. What's your username and password? I don't know. Okay. All this goes in your strategy document. All your information about your marketing, your digital marketing, goes in this document, right? Who's your hosting provider? Okay. I had a client a few years ago. I said, I don't think your hosting setup is that great. And by the way, remember you lost your username and password. I'm fine, he says. We developed a website for him. It's pretty good. He's getting a lot of traffic on it. Comes back to me a year later and says, my website's gone. And I said, gone? He's like, yeah, could you restore it? And I said, we're not hosting your website, sir. GoDaddy is. Remember, you wanted to host it on GoDaddy. Well, he forgot to update his information in GoDaddy, his hosting provider. And guess what? His visa was declined. So they just deleted his whole site and it was gone forever. He lost his whole site. Okay. So again, a lot of this is you got to keep track of, even if you work with an agency like mine and you are paying them to host a website or something like that, you need to retain access to this stuff. You need to know how to get into this stuff so you don't get burned. Okay. As far as now, content management systems, those are website builders, right? Those are places where you can host website content. So as far as the best ones, people ask me this a lot. I recommend WordPress, Joomla, and Magento. Okay. Those are the only three I really recommend. Drupal is another good one, by the way, but it's very complex. I do not recommend it to small business owners. These three have pretty usable software for building stuff. And they're pretty good for SEO too. I recommend WordPress highly above the others just because it's the most widely used. It's got the most support. You're going to find the most people who can do WordPress development, honestly, to get them to help you with a site. Hosting providers. This can also be important because if your hosting on your website is terrible, right? Your site is going to be slow. It's going to be sluggish. It's not going to work very well. Plus, if you don't have things set up well, your website can just disappear, okay? So I only recommend 2 hosting providers. If you are local to the Greenville area or really just Eastern North Carolina, I recommend University PC Care as a local host. They have affordable hosting. I've worked with them for years. They host some of my clients for various reasons. And I think they're really good. They're secure. If you want to go with just, Google an option and find it, I recommend DreamHost strongly. Okay. I have tried numerous hosts over the years, Bluehost, GoDaddy, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I've had problems with all of them. I've had a few problems with DreamHost, to be honest, but they've been the best. I've used them for, I don't know, maybe as long as 15 years now, not only for hosting client stuff, client websites mostly, but also for hosting my own web presence. They've got good support. They're relatively affordable, right? So the one thing that sucks people in with stuff like GoDaddy, okay, so that horror story with that client would never have happened with DreamHost. DreamHost would never have just deleted a website and then you come back and it's gone, because they have procedures for doing that. Even if your card's declined, they message you or email you or probably call you on the phone and say, hey, you're about to lose blah, blah, blah. They also back things up automatically if you use their hosting, okay? So some of these providers, GoDaddy is a big offender of this. They run these ads where it's like, get started for 99 cents. Well, yeah, sure, get started for 99 cents. What are you getting? You're getting jammed onto a server with probably 1 million other people. So your site is going to be sluggish as heck. And they're not doing anything. They're not providing backups. All these things that would go into, something like DreamHost, you're talking about $3, $4, $5 a month, depending on the deal they have going. The difference between that and 99 cents is all the things that DreamHost will not do, right? They won't put your site on without some kind of backup. They won't just assign you a customer service rep who doesn't know what they're doing. All that goes into that extra money. So if you get what you pay for, if you're hosting a site for 99 cents, right? You're getting nothing. You're getting literally a hard drive somewhere where your website is stored, and that's it. You're getting no support. You're getting no backups, nothing. Now, all those services are in there, but you got to pay extra. So if you pay for the GoDaddy premium or whatever, where you get backups and all that stuff, you end up paying actually more than something like DreamHost. So anyway, that's the one I recommend. All right, so getting into social media management, which is a whole thing, right? This is a big pain point for a lot of small businesses I work with. They say, I don't know, I can't keep track of social media. I'm overwhelmed. I don't have time, et cetera, et cetera. I recommend Hootsuite for that. There are, every organization out there that has a really strong social media game is using some sort of tool, I guarantee, okay? Basically what Hootsuite does and what a lot of these other social media management tools do is they enable you to have these different streams, and I'll show an image of this in a second. But basically, they show you what's going on with social media. That's a big thing, right? So you don't have to scroll through tons of posts. You don't have to go search, 1 million different profiles. They also have some kind of publishing tool that enables you to queue up posts. This is a secret. You may wonder how some of these big companies have all this content that's constantly flowing. Well, they're scheduling that stuff. right? They have a calendar, they have that stuff in the calendar. Everything is set up to publish by a certain time and a certain date with the correct links and all that stuff. They also allow you to manage multiple accounts with the same tool, which is key. I meet a lot of small business owners where, they're logging into Facebook to publish to Facebook. Then they're logging into here to publish to here, and they're logging into here. And they look at me with like 6 different social media accounts, and they're like, how do you manage all that? I'm using this tool. Okay. With one interface, you can publish to all your channels at once. Okay. And it's usually relatively inexpensive. You get 50 accounts for $9.99 a month with Hootsuite. Okay. If you have additional members of your organization, it's only $10 a month for each additional user account. So these are relatively affordable as well. So what does this look like? This is just an example. This is actually a little old, but all the features essentially there, they just kind of changed the skin. This is basically what Hootsuite looks like, okay, when you log in. So you see, you can create these streams, and these streams can be anything you want. So you can, new followers is a great thing if you're trying to have a presence on something like Twitter that's very busy. Hootsuite will surface everybody that follows you within a certain amount of time, and you'll see their tweets. Then you can respond to them. Okay. You can also do mentions. So anytime you're mentioned online, I use Hootsuite to know, hey, somebody's tweeted about me. Somebody, retweeted my, about my company, you see here as an example. I want to respond to them. I want to own that interaction, say, yeah, thanks. It is a great company name, blah, blah, blah. Okay. There's also interactions for Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and these other platforms I've talked about that you can integrate. Okay. There is a learning curve with this, like any tool, but if you're going to have a presence over multiple platforms, I highly recommend this. And even if you're only going to use one, I recommend it because of the publishing tool. Okay. Which I don't think I have a screenshot for now. But the publishing tool essentially enables you to go in and schedule a post for your favorite platform. So what this enables you to do is you can go in to the publishing feature. And the good thing about Hootsuite too is it's got tons of documentation. So if you're looking to learn, just Google Hootsuite how to blah, 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 and they've got a huge database of information with screenshots. They're very useful. But you can essentially publish and set the time for any post that you want to go out over any platform that you have in Hootsuite, which is really useful because that way you're not having to do one more thing every day. You're not having to log in to whatever social media platform you're using and post. You can schedule things ahead of time. So, if you have a sale coming up that starts in a week, you can schedule things leading up to that. I recommend you sit down once a week with Hootsuite and manage all this stuff. And that's it, right? The rest of the time, maybe you open Hootsuite for a few minutes a day just to see if you have any mentions, and then you go on about your day, okay? One thing about Hootsuite is there is a free version, which they try to encourage you to do to a certain degree, right? They want you to sign up for a paid account, of course, but they want you to sign up for free so they can suck you in, right? I encourage that because you get 3 profiles and some limited features completely free, okay? And if you go to that link, that's the link, okay? Don't go to hootsuite.com and try to sign up because, I know the back door into this. And that's how I recommend getting started. You get the publisher tool, you get, like I said, you get 3 accounts. For most small businesses, they may stay there for a while, okay? Another, now we're getting into the pay-per-click, which is a little different, but the 2 paid advertising platforms I recommend online to small business. One is Google Ads, okay? Google Ads is basically a pay-per-click platform. So you pay every time someone clicks on a Google ad. That's how it works. The average is $1 to $2. So it's relatively affordable for marketing. If you looked at impressions and whatever you get for, these are people that are fairly motivated. It's actually cheaper than traditional marketing, right? Take out a radio ad or something like that. Now that, you'll have more people in their car or whatever who are going to hear your radio ad. But as far as people that look up your information or interact with it, this is very affordable. Now, that average, I will say, has some aberrations. If you are in the medical community or insurance, it's going to be a lot higher, but this is the average. So for most businesses, it's relatively affordable. Essentially, this looks like an old-fashioned banner ad is what it is, but it's text-based. I'll show a photo of it as well. Just click over. So that's what they look like. And I'll go through what this is in a second. But that digital marketing by Adobe, that's a Google ad, right? That's what they look like. Basically, it links to a landing page on your website. So here's where you see if you want to reach a significant amount of people, you need a website, right? You need a place to link this advertising back to. If you just have a Facebook page, you can't even run a Google ad, okay? They say, this is coming from Google, okay, so who knows? But they say 50% of users who click on an ad buy. That's because they're motivated, right? They know it's an ad. So let's click over to this again. These are clearly labeled as ads. So if I click on that, I'm probably looking for a digital marketing solution, right? I'm probably highly motivated. So that's why it's worth its weight. They show up before search engine results too. So you're kind of paying to be at the top of the search engine. Why would you do that? So, search engines are not guaranteed. You're not guaranteed to have the top spot on Google. You're probably aware of this, right? So if you're trying to advertise for digital marketing, for example, good luck. There's a lot of crowded people that have content that's all over the internet, okay? So essentially what you're paying is to show up in the front of that browser and be the first thing that people see, which is very valuable, okay? And better than that, you don't have to pay every time people see it. So people can see this ad for free. You only pay when they actually click on the ad. So you're actually only paying when people are motivated to buy from you. So it's worth its weight. It's worth the investment. Okay. The one problem with Google Ads is the analytics on the back of it. Okay. The analytics are very complex to the degree that I honestly, if people want to start, I just realized this is I grabbed this from online as an example, but I realize it's in British pounds, something like that. But, it's hard to maintain. So get started. Google will lead you through. The other thing a lot about these tools is they'll do tours and they'll lead you through. So feel free to get started. But, if you're going to, especially if you're going to invest a serious amount of money in a Google ad campaign, you're going to want to work with somebody eventually. That's one thing I will warn you about. That's the one problem with Google Ads. And it's funny, they came out with, and there used to be AdWords. This image says AdWords is the only image I could find, but they're now Google Ads, just FYI, it's the same thing. But they had this AdWords Express for a while, for example, and it was terrible. It was a better experience, but it didn't do all the stuff that Google Ads does, which is provide cheap, affordable pay-per-click advertising. So they kind of scrapped it. So the other platform I recommend for paid online advertising is Facebook ads. Okay. So if you're going to advertise on social media, I recommend Facebook. This says that you're trying to reach people on Facebook. You may say, well, there's LinkedIn advertising, it's just all very expensive. Okay. And it's hard to get started with. Okay. So this is what I recommend for most all business owners. The pay-per-click average is 27 cents. So it's very affordable. Ads show up in news feeds on the sidebar. So it's triggered by a lot of analytics based on their past likes, their past behavior, their associations. I mean, we know that Facebook is mining all of our data. We've heard that story, right? It also links to a landing page on your website. So again, you need that website for targeting. And the nice thing is, Google Ads really only uses keywords. I mean, that's what a search engine uses, right? You can also set location parameters, but Facebook uses a lot more insights. So this is what some Facebook ads looks like. This is just an example. These ads are really keyed to a lot of data, demographics, age, gender, purchasing habits. I mean, if you have a Facebook account, they have way too much data on you. Let me just tell you that. Okay. But this is good if you're trying to reach people, right? Because you can really zero in. It's great for small businesses that have a local region they're trying to reach, because you can advertise in a certain search area. You can say, you know what, I have I can only ship things to this search area. So I'm going to just, when I go in to run my ads, I'm just going to use that search area. That way you're only reaching people that you're trying to reach. And it comes with this completely free thing called Insights. So this is a Facebook page you have to have, right, to run an ad. And it comes with all this information that tells you, every month, every, minute to minute, what your engagement is like on your page. Okay. And if you go in there, you'll also see that you've probably seen this if you have a Facebook page for your business, right? They're like, you should boost this post. You should boost this post. You should do that. Okay. People always ask me, they say, should I boost posts? Absolutely. Facebook is trying to get your money, but they're also trying to get your money by providing a service, which is reaching people, right? Having people engage with your content. So if they recommend a boost it. If you want to run an actual ad, which is a freestanding, continuous thing that people see, you want to test that with some boosts. $10 over a few days, $5, whatever and people always ask me how much to spend. Whatever Facebook recommends, whatever's in your budget. Okay. If they say spend 1083, spend the 1083. All that is based on this data, and it's targeted to say, we think this is the most economic thing for you at your step. We know you haven't advertised before, so we're recommending you do this $10 thing and then see how it goes. If it doesn't work out, try something else. Okay. It's a great platform for DIY stuff. All right. So we're getting down to last few minutes here. And then I'm assuming these are questions I haven't had a chance to click over, but there's stuff in the chat. So I want to leave plenty of time for questions. Some resources to leave you with. One is my blog. There is a lot of information about digital marketing for small business online. Some of it is good. A lot of it, honestly, is targeted at larger businesses, though. It wouldn't surprise you that small businesses are not a cash cow for folks like myself. I do this because I'm passionate about it and I want to help smaller organizations, et cetera, et cetera. So my blog is honestly a really great source for this stuff. I've got a lot of content up there. I keep stuff updated, and it's targeted mostly at small businesses, also nonprofits, but smaller organizations. Some other templates here, though. My template is linked again. It's earlier in the slides, and you will get these slides out. But there's some other templates just to look and see what other people are recommending. But again, you want to have a strategy, and you want to have it in a single document. So that's a big takeaway from this. Have your strategy in a single place, have all your information, and it's like a business plan, right? You have a business plan, hopefully. So you have your marketing plan, and within that marketing plan, you have your digital marketing plan, and, store all that information somewhere. You got to come back to that mission, those goals, those aims on a regular basis to make sure you're tacking in the right direction. Otherwise, it's just random chance, right? You may be getting better, you may not. If you're not, examining your goals and looking at what's happening, then you're just kind of spinning your wheels. Okay. So another thing here is I just want to mention that I am available for consultations. I provide a free 30-minute consultation to anybody that goes through this link here or contacts me through the website, but I just send them the link to sign up. So you can reach out to me outside of this, and I'm happy to do a free 30-minute, no obligation consultation to talk about your specific aims. Of course, I'm hoping to help you out, but if that is in the cards, that's fine. I've done a lot of these where it has turned anything, but that's something I just provide. I'm happy to answer questions, and we've got about 4 minutes late. I think this is my last slide. Yeah. So I'll probably wind down here and turn to questions, but, know that I'm there at least for half an hour for free. And I would encourage all of you to use this because, you probably have specific questions that are, you probably have questions that are very specific to your business that are not going to be answered in the next, half an hour, or you'll have a question later, or you'll say, I've had people pull up hey, I'm starting this Google ad campaign. Will you take a look at it? Within those 30 minutes, I'm happy to do whatever you ask for. And it's very valuable. Most people like me, they'll do a 30-minute thing. It's a spiel, right? It's all to try to sell you on some service. I promise you, this is not that. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I think I'm going to wind down here because I think there's going to be a lot of questions. I've thrown a lot of information at you guys. So do we have questions coming in?
Yeah, there's quite a few. I'll
Okay.
go ahead and mention one here.
Sure.
Great presentation. Love the content. I'm sure a lot of people are going to be using your services. So hopefully give you a contact here shortly. One of the questions, if you have WordPress, doesn't WordPress host the site?
Okay, so that's a good question. So if you are using WordPress.com, yes. I think I lost. I think I went past it. Yeah. Okay. So if you're using WordPress.com, it does host the site within itself. Okay. And if you're already locked into WordPress.com, that's fine. But it's very easy. What I recommend is you actually do a self-hosted WordPress site. So that means you have a domain, which is blah, blah, blah.com, contentgarden.org, and you install WordPress there. Why? It just provides you more features. WordPress.com is meant to sort of be an easier to use platform. It's impossible to really design for. And so that's another question that may have come up, or, you do at some point want to work with somebody to build a website for you. To get started, do whatever you need to do. But to really get moving with your business, you need somebody who, unless you're a web designer, right? So WordPress.com is a valuable service, but it's not going to get you to the level you need to be as far as, the design and the look and feel and the performance. Even though I know you can sign up for a domain, you may have done that. The nice thing about WordPress.com is even if you've done that to get started, you can transfer all that out to a self-hosted system after the fact. Because it's still WordPress, right? So it's very easy to export all your data from any WordPress site, WordPress.com or self-hosted, and transfer it to another WordPress site. So you can fix that. But there's kind of like two WordPresses, right? There's installing it on your own domain, and then there's WordPress.com, which is a little different.
Thank you. Next question. If you have a patent, what would be the next step in marketing that product?
Okay, so that's a little tricky. It depends a lot. So I'm not an IP guy, but essentially, marketing is marketing. So I always ask people, what is their niche, right? What is the thing that you've patented? What makes it unique? That's always, when you're thinking about these goals, you really want to think about what makes you unique, what makes you interesting, and something that people would buy over something else. So this is really a market fit question, which is, okay, there's this market of people that provide some service, unless you've invented something that's never existed before, probably not. It's probably an innovation or something that's different from other services. What makes it different, right? That's the key to anything, is differentiating yourself from the herd. Hootsuite is a perfect example. Before Hootsuite, people were having to log into multiple social media channels a day. And then they came out and said, hey, we developed this tool where you can manage everything in one place. And that was their whole pitch. And that's how they grew as a company. So as on the marketing end, it's really about your value proposition and being specific about it and saying, okay, this is what we provide that is different from these other folks, either cost or uniqueness or whatever.
So thank you. Is Hootsuite well suited to Instagram? The person uses recur post and they are supposed to work with Instagram, but it never formats correctly.
Yes. So all of these tools have challenges. I will just say that. The way they work is the tool negotiates kind of on your behalf with the social media platform. So they go to Facebook or Twitter or Instagram and they say, hey, I'm going to post as this user. You have registered me as an app and you're saying this is okay. The problem is Facebook has no, it's up to Hootsuite and whatever the tool is to work with the social media platform, not the other way around. So sometimes features change, right? And if you're having formatting issues, for example, that's some negotiation between the tool and the social media platform that's not working. Hootsuite to me is also the most stable, and it's why I recommend it. There's Buffer, there's these other ones out there. Facebook, Hootsuite is the oldest, the most established, they're the best funded. So I think they're going to have the best integration with these other platforms, but there's always challenges. If you have a problem, the first thing to go is support of the tool you're using, even if it's free, and say, hey, this isn't working when I post, and try to solve the problem. And if it doesn't work, you need to consider using a different tool. But I've even had, they've been rare, but I've had issues with Hootsuite over the years with posting or some other feature, but they have very good support. So when I go to them, they fix the problem, right? So that's something to consider as well. But they do work really well with Instagram.
So, what would you say is a fair price for outsourcing, I assume marketing or digital marketing when starting out?
Yeah, so this is a good question, and I set myself up for this. So definitely, you can do that, and it really depends on what your goals are. Now, I will say, unless you're working with somebody in the developing world like India or Pakistan or wherever, if you go to another agency like me, you're going to pay a lot. In fact, most agencies don't want to work with small businesses unless they're like Local Edge, which I don't honestly recommend because I don't think they're great. But there's agencies out there that specialize in small businesses that are rare. Okay, and I'm not trying to protect and say you should only work with me, but I will say that most agencies do not look at small businesses as a viable client. So keep that in mind. So for ads, for example, if I asked you all, if I did a poll and said, how much do you think the starting cost for a Google ad is for an agency to work with you? I mean, if you are not spending $5,000 a month, most digital agencies will not even try to run an ad campaign for you. We will do that. Okay. We will work with you, whatever, is within your budget, basically. It really depends though on the agency you're working with and what you're asking them to do. So a lot of agencies do have some kind of special. So for example, a low cost thing we have, if you're having a hard time keeping up with social media content, this is just for publishing, right? So this is just to manage your content, not to develop it, blah, 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 but just to publish it, up to 7 days a week, 3 times a day. We do $100 a month per channel. Okay. Which is just to give you a sense of the lower end. But if you're talking about doing a full campaign, it just really depends on the nature of the campaign. But if you're talking about, we want to do the works, Google ads, Facebook ads, social media publishing, search engine optimization, blah, 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 blah. I mean, the sky's the limit. There's businesses that spend millions of dollars a month. Okay. I recommend people, again, focus on specific goals. What are you trying to do? Well, I just built my website and I'm trying to direct traffic to it. Great. Now, what is your budget? And then we work from there. Okay. So if you're trying to direct people to your website from search engines, it's like, hey, let's run a Google Ads campaign. Let's start small and see what response you get and then work from there. So I usually get people started for outsourcing at, a few $100s a month for like, ongoing digital marketing campaigns. Web design, of course, is different. That's usually a one-time expense. But I hope that answered your question.
So what is your opinion about Bluehost?
So Bluehost is actually recommended by WordPress. You may have seen that as a hosting provider. I think they're fine. I don't think they update their technology as often as DreamHost, which is why I recommend DreamHost over Bluehost. I've worked with developers in the past who have gone into Bluehost and said, oh, they're using blah, blah, blah of PHP, the code that kind of runs the back end of a website, and they should be using this version. I've always found that DreamHost is just very careful. They keep things updated. I always go in to, check on the back end of my sites, and they have older copies of my site just sitting there because, hey, we changed this one thing and we wanted to make sure that no settings were messed up. I just haven't found that with other of the big hosting providers. But yeah, I think the best for as far as just the go on the internet finding hosting provider are probably DreamHost, Bluehost, and HostGator. I think are all good, but I've had some bad experiences with both HostGator and Bluehost, so I just don't think they're as good as DreamHost, but I think they're fine. They're better than GoDaddy. Obviously, I've just had so many problems with GoDaddy over the years. I can't recommend them at all anymore. But I think any of the DreamHost, Bluehost, and HostGator, you should be probably fine.
Excellent. Next question is, since this is a do-it-yourself marketing webinar, wouldn't GoDaddy be a great tool for beginners? And then wouldn't DreamHost be more for someone who will have to hire a web designer?
So not necessarily. So that is, this is the hard thing about when I say DIY, is there's certain things that I recommend you DIY and certain things I don't. So getting started with WordPress.com is great because, again, you can take that and you can export the data, blah, blah. So if you're talking about GoDaddy, when I hear people getting started with GoDaddy, I hear I'm using the website builder that they offer for free or whatever, right? It's just terrible. It's, Wix, these other builders. The problem is they will work for a time early on in your business, and then they will never work again. I cannot count the amount of people over the years who have come to me and said, I built a website for myself in GoDaddy, in Wix, in Weebly, wherever. Can you take that and convert it? And the answer is always no, because they own that content. When you build a site in like the GoDaddy website builder, to pick on them, you can never get that information out of there and convert to anything else. It's starting from scratch. Okay. So why not, go to WordPress.com. You can do a lot worse and get started because you can always export data from WordPress and even to another site. You could redevelop it in a completely different system. Okay. So WordPress.com to me is the get started tool, not something like GoDaddy, just because I have not found their services to be great. And WordPress is just a lot more flexible. It's a lot more customizable. And when hopefully you decide to work with someone like me, we can take what you've done in something like WordPress.com and convert it. Whereas with with GoDaddy, we're starting from scratch. So that's my short answer. There's certain tools that seem really great, but then they're stuck in that platform and you can never get them out again, is the reason.
Just a follow-on question to that. What are your thoughts on Shopify?
So Shopify is an interesting tool. I think Shopify is fine. And it's pretty customizable. Okay. It's a pretty big platform. The version of that for WordPress is called Woocommerce. And I tend to recommend Woocommerce over Shopify just because Woocommerce, again, is open source. So you can work with someone like me and they can pull your data out of WooCommerce, put it in there. And I understand, especially if you're trying to sell online, the lure of something like Shopify, because there's even a website template that they provide. That's fine. Shopify, I'm saying, is okay. WooCommerce, I think, is a little bit better just because they offer the same thing. You can build a website right with the WooCommerce template. But again, when you need to build something bigger later, a lot of this is planning for the future. You know, when you build something in Shopify, it's kind of stuck there. Okay, so you can get your data out, which is good. It's better than something like GoDaddy or Wix or something like that. But it's always going to be locked into their system. Whereas if you use something like WooCommerce, I can go into a WooCommerce site and completely rebuild the thing, basically. So that's the only difference. And WooCommerce works the same as Shopify. They kind of walk you through the steps and help you get set up, and then you can start selling. So that's why I recommend WooCommerce over Shopify, but Shopify is good. I think Shopify is fine.
I think you've already answered this next question, but may have some insights. Where is the best place to purchase a domain? Is it GoDaddy or Ionos?
So here's something I'll say, which is rare. It doesn't matter. You can purchase a domain anywhere you want. Namecheap.com. Okay, so domains are different than hosting. So what I focus on is the hosting. It's where your website files are stored. Okay, that is different than the domain. The domain is easy. You go to a company, whatever they are, you pay them usually, right, 10 to 20 bucks a year, and they say this person is basically renting, right? We say we own a domain, we don't own it. We're renting it from a company that's like a leasing agency, right? But it's very easy, and it's in any competent hosting platform enables you to host a website that the domain is elsewhere. You just need somebody to, and this is where it gets a little technical, you need somebody to point the hosting provider at the domain if it's elsewhere. So for example, if you're getting started and you don't have a domain yet, and you're going to use DreamHost or Bluehost, I recommend you just register the domain with them because it's just going to be easier. Okay. But if you've already registered your domain with GoDaddy or whoever, it's very easy to set up a hosting account in another service and point it at that domain. That really doesn't matter. I've never met a domain provider that will not allow that. That by law, they have to allow you to point your domain somewhere else, even GoDaddy.
Another question is, what is a fair price for developing a website? Roughly about 3 to 5 pages.
So this is another good question. I can tell you that, so I will just, I'm probably too honest, but I'll just tell you, there's different tiers of this as there is with everything. Okay. I won't talk about the people I know who are like, believe it or not, we will not work with anyone for less than $500,000. Those people exist. They're trying to work with, we have a car, we have 40 car dealerships that, that's their target customer. Okay. As far as people who will work with small businesses at all, though, you have very established agencies that have a lot of staff. I'll just mention one local in Greenville, Evolve. They really don't want to work with anybody for less than $10,000. So if you go to them and you say, we want a website, they'll say that'll be $10,000. Doesn't matter what you say. One page with $10,000. Okay. That's just their operating costs. I mean, they have a big office and they have overhead, that's just what they've decided is their going rate. On the other end of that spectrum is you find a freelancer through freelancer.com or something like that. They're usually in some other country, and you pay them pennies on the dollar to develop something for you. You can get a site built for a few $100s that way. I've heard horror stories. There are a lot of good freelancers in India and South America and places like that. There are a lot of people, as you can imagine, who just have a computer and you don't really have protection, right? You can, you have protection to a certain degree that, you have to say you're satisfied with the website, but how do you know, right? You're not a website expert. So the thing may look fine. I've heard this from tons of people over the years. They're like, my website looked good when I first got it for $300 from this guy in India, but then a month later it crashed, or a month later I couldn't update it or something like that. Because they don't really have to, they're in a different country, right? They're not really beholden to you. They don't have to deal with American laws, for example. So it's kind of, you get what you get. Okay. And then there's agencies like myself. We started about $2,000. That's where we look at for a 3 to 5 page site. Depending on where you're at, that may seem like a lot. I trust you. Trust me, it is not. That is very affordable for the quality of work that we produce. But the difference is there's quality assurance, right? Again, there's a certain amount of laws in this country that, if I sell you a website and it crashes 2 weeks later, you could, theoretically sue me for, breach of contract because I signed a contract saying I was to develop a website with you. All you're doing with a freelancer is saying, I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money and you're going to deliver a product to me. It doesn't say what the product's going to be. Okay. So that's the difference. And it's hard. It's hard to find an agency that will work with you in an affordable way. But that's what I would look for. If you're not going to work with me, that's fine. But finding an agency that, is about $1,500 to $3,000, I think is a good range. And look at their portfolio, right? See that they have good work, that the sites you're looking at seem to function well, click on them, make sure they're still up. Okay. And that's probably what you're going to pay. You pay less than that, you get what you get. It's a grab bag.
So, if you are developing personas before you actually have clientele, how do you gather that information?
Yes. So part of this is a whim and a prayer, right? I recommend people start with what I call assumption personas, which is a profile based on who they're after. Okay. The reason for that is customer research is costly. Okay. And it takes a lot of time. So if you spend 6 months, it really depends on what you're trying to do. Let me revise that. So if you're trying to do this sort of startup thing, right, where you're going to launch this product and you're trying to be sure there's a market for it, then you absolutely have to do customer discovery. And that's interviews. That's the best way to do it. You call people up, in your social network and use the snowball method, basically say, hey, do you have 2 or 3 other people I can talk to? You're trying to sell I'm doing something right now with recreational boaters. So we're trying to develop this thing for recreational boaters. So we've talked to a bunch of recreational boaters and asked them, questions about what they look for in the mobile app for recreational boating and blah, blah, blah. If you are, a typical small business though, that you're essentially just, you have a product or service and you have, it's a known quantity. In other words, you can kind of build as you go. And the best place to look for that is, surveys. So every time someone purchases something from you, have them do a customer survey and ask them more than just, are you satisfied? Ask them how they found you. Ask them something about what made them shop with you. Ask them, of course, about their customer experience, but ask them a little bit of demographic data if you can, and then you can kind of build over time. So there's kind of 2 different models. There's the sort of build, do the plane while flying with it model, where you kind of collect data as you go and you build your business. And then there's doing a bunch of research and then sort of launching. And it really depends. The person that has the patent, they're probably going to want to do the bunch of customer research first, because you need to see if there's a market out there before you invest in developing this new technology. But if you're just kind of popping up a website and you're getting ready to sell stuff, you can kind of build that as you go, I recommend. But it's all the same. It's talking to people, interviews, focus groups, interviews, or surveys rather, collecting that data. That's how you do it. Start with people too. That's a good place to start.
Do you know if websites developed with Everweb, a WYSIWYG site development software tool, lets customers transfer their sites to other systems, including their data?
I have no idea. I've heard of Everweb before. I don't know what it is. That'd be something in a 30-minute consultation. I'd be happy to log in and look at it. And I could probably tell you during that consultation, free consultation, if it can do that or not. There are lots of those tools, I will say, that promise to be able to transfer blah, 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 and then they lie. The difference between transfer, by the way, like WordPress, if you export your files and you import them to another WordPress, you can even pull, if you have custom code, you can pull that out, boom, the exact same website in another location. There's even a plugin, which is just a feature that WordPress offers where you can duplicate. You can just like suck a website out of one domain and put it in another. Okay. That is relatively rare. most of these tools say you can transfer, they're going to transfer very limited information. WordPress and the open source tools like Magento, Joomla are the only ones where you're going to get the exact same, features and everything from one site to the next. I can tell you that. But I'd be happy to look at Everweb. I don't know a lot about it.
So thank you. Looks like we have one last question unless something else shows up. Will survey tools be available on basic WooCommerce website?
That's a good question. So, a lot of times when you're doing customer research and you're doing a survey, you're going to want to use something like SurveyMonkey or, some freemium thing where you can get started for free and you can send it out to people. But WooCommerce now, with WooCommerce, they're absolutely, because WooCommerce integrates with WordPress, so it's open source. So there are a bunch of survey tools you can use with WordPress, and you can integrate those into your site. So every time someone makes a purchase, they get an emailed survey. So that is absolutely available. If you don't have that set up yet, however, you're probably looking for SurveyMonkey or something like that. Social media is an exception. You can create sort of Facebook surveys and stuff like that. But the short answer is yes. If you build a site with WooCommerce, you can install plugins that give you customer surveys that you can send out. But other than that, I recommend SurveyMonkey, I guess is the short answer.
Anybody else have any follow-on questions? Please put them in the chat.
Go back to my contact info too.
We'll say, we've had a lot of thank yous to Giuseppe. I think everyone enjoyed your content today. Definitely reach out to him if you're interested in that consultation. If you guys are interested in, requests for counseling for the Small Business Technology Development Center, I have placed the link in the chat. Feel free to reach out to one of our counselors where, again, we're a free one-on-one counseling group. Giuseppe, again, thank you very much for your time. We'll send out the PowerPoint slides shortly later this week. Okay.
Great. Appreciate it. Thanks,
Excellent.
everyone.
Thanks.
Stay in touch.